Egypt assures the Grand Egyptian Museum remains state-owned. The ICC expresses profound alarm over atrocities in Al-Fashir, Sudan. And Iran's supreme leader says talks with the U.S. require ending support for Israel and withdrawing from the region. Four p.m. here in Cairo. Time for the news with Mihal Al-Hamalawi. Egypt's Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities has denied reports that the Japanese International Cooperation Agency, JICA, would manage or operate the Grand Egyptian Museum for 10 years in exchange for Japanese loans. The ministry confirmed the museum is a fully state-owned economic authority under the minister responsible for antiquities, which solely oversees its operations. The loans, it said, are being repaid by Egypt and are not linked to granting management rights to any foreign entity. The Egyptian State Information Service, SIS, has reported that hundreds of millions of viewers across 5 continents followed the grand opening of the Grand Egyptian Museum led by President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi. Delegations from around 80 countries attended, while thousands of TV channels and digital platforms broadcast the event live. The SIS noted that over 705 major international media outlets covered the opening, 98% positively, highlighting Egypt's rich cultural heritage, modern infrastructure, and national stability. President el-Sisi's vision, backed by investments since 2014, brought to life the world's largest museum dedicated to a single civilization. Croatian President Zoran Milanovic has praised Cairo's Grand Egyptian Museum during its grand opening, hailing it as a showcase of Egypt's unparalleled historical heritage. Accompanied by his wife and senior officials, he highlighted Egypt's cultural legacy and enduring ties between the two nations. Dr. Ahmed Zayed, director of the Bibliotheca Alexandrina, welcomed the delegation, noting GEM's role in promoting global cultural exchange and celebrating Egypt's efforts to preserve and share its ancient treasures. The British ambassador to Egypt, Mark Bryson Richardson, has praised the Grand Egyptian Museum as a stunning world-class institution, showcasing the wonders of ancient Egypt. He highlighted the UK's partnership with Egypt in obtaining EDGE Green Building certification for the museum. The ambassador noted that Egypt remains a top destination for British travelers and expressed hopes of deepening cultural and tourism ties during Prime Minister Keir Starmer's upcoming visit. Turkish Minister of Culture and Tourism, Mehmet Nuri Ersoy, has described the museum as Egypt's fourth pyramid. Minister Ersoy praised the project as a vital cultural initiative that underscores humanity's shared history, saying that efforts to preserve heritage and pass it to future generations strengthen the friendship and cultural cooperation between Egypt and Turkey. Egypt Air, the official airline for the Grand Egyptian Museum GEM launch, is offering up to 40% off selected international flights to Cairo during its GEM opening week promotion. Bookings are open from the 1st until the 7th of November for travel between the 1st and 30th of November, with all trips to be completed by 10th of March 2026. The airline said that the offer gives travelers worldwide a chance to visit Egypt and explore its newest cultural landmark. And for further analysis, we now move to Hani Seif in our newsroom. To you, Hani.
Thank you, Hela. For deeper focus and a better analysis, we're joined from Cairo by Dr. Abdulrahim Raihan, the member of the History of Antiquities Committee at the Supreme Council of Culture and head of the campaign to defend the Egyptian civilization. Welcome to Q News. Can you clarify, in simple terms, how the Grand Egyptian Museum's state ownership and management are structured, and how will this remain unchanged going forward?
When it comes to the Grand Egyptian Museum, first let's talk about the ceremony, the grand ceremony that the whole world watched. The ceremony started with some kind of hymn. I am Egyptian by Said Darwish. I am an Egyptian that I have built a legacy between the pyramids, and he also talked about the Nile, and then President El-Sisi put the last stone that has Egypt's name in some kind of smaller model of the museum. And so in this official ceremony, we saw how grand the ceremony was, and we saw that all the countries had a part in this. We had around 79 delegations attending, and 39 of them were delegations led by kings, presidents, queens, and officials, also scientists and so on. We had around 450 correspondents from around 150 channels and newspapers. And then we go to President El-Sisi's speech. He invited the visitors to make sure that the museum is not just a museum, but a way and a hub to spread awareness about humanity and cooperation, and to use it for research purposes. And so,
yeah, so Dr. Rehan, I'm sorry to cut you off, but what about the state ownership of the museum and the management, the structure of management? How will this, can you just explain in simple terms the structure of the management alongside the state ownership factor, and how will this still be the case going forward?
A full ownership of the Grand Egyptian Museum is Egyptian. We know that, of course, we had fund from the JICA, and also Egypt funded it, of course, but Egypt has full administration and full authority. There is a committee there is a committee to oversee the museum, all the workers there. And for the future, we want to put this museum as our priority and one of the most important museums around the world. Not when it comes, to how large it is, but because it has the artifact of one civilization. And then the second point, we're telling the whole world that we can take care and preserve our artifacts. They always use, they protect. When we asked for some of our artifacts back, they said that you don't have some kind of storage unit in not a grand museum where you can keep your artifact and keep your heritage. And so, yeah, here we can preserve and conserve, even restore those artifacts. We have the largest restoration lab in the Middle East now in the Grand Egyptian Museum, and it has around 19 labs for restoration, to preserve them and to amend any imperfections in the statues. And not just this, the lab is, it has glass facade, and it's against bomb. It happened before when we had a revolution, and there was bombing of museums and they were affected. And so this here
well,
is
Dr.
again.
Well, you've alluded to the opening ceremony, which was absolutely magnificent. Now, with the unprecedented global coverage and the spotlight on the opening ceremony, what are the safe, practical steps to turn this attention into sustained cultural diplomacy and tourism?
We have several steps, and the first one here is as President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, he wants cooperation between all the international authorities to have more investment when it comes to tourism and culture. And then the second point, when it comes to the culture, we think of the museum as a cultural institution and cultural. And Egypt will go down history for having the largest number of artifacts in UNESCO, because every artifact in Egypt is huge when it comes to international view. But here in Egypt we have only around 6 of natural heritage, and then 6 non-materialistic heritages. And so here we can label more artifacts, more heritages. And then when it comes to tourism, also the museum needs to increase the foreign currency inflow. And yeah, actually we tourism is being boosted now. We have around 17 million tourists up till now, but the museum alone can get us around 3 to 5 million tourists, and so we may even surpass 20 million tourists and reach Egypt's Vision 2030. But we aim above that even. We want to make sure that there is tourism promotion, and I want to have a Supreme Council for Tourism Promotion. It needs to have economic experts and culture experts, and bring all the research done on those fields,
Yes.
and to make sure that we can implement this research, because right now we're not paying enough attention for this. We need this Supreme Council to implement the research and the scientific innovations. We need to implement all this and to use them for the greater good, and maybe amend what needs to be amended.
Yes.
The problem here is we have this already, but we're not working towards implementing them. The research just are in libraries and not being or not taken advantage of. And
Yes.
so yeah, we need to increase the tourists inflow. And then the third point, now we have expertise when it comes to artifact restoration and museum organization, and we need to transfer this expertise to other countries. And they have actually started with the Minister of Tourism and Antiquities meetings, like when he had a meeting with the Brazilian cultural minister, and they told him that they need to restore the museum that was burned down in Brazil. And
Yes.
they asked
Well,
for
one of the
Egyptian-
highlights as well, Dr. Rehan, was the gem being a green and future-focused museum. that goes along with the environmentally friendly and aware concept and supports the Egypt Vision 2030 for Sustainable Development. How does it support Egypt's broader national vision as well for culture, education and international cooperation?
It is very important. First of all, when it comes to international cooperation that was called for by President El-Sisi, this cooperation needs to be built on peace and talks and negotiations with people to start a new page, basically, when it comes to talks. And this needs to be founded on exchanging expertise. And lots of countries, like the King of Spain, he said that that the country will provide around 50 million tourists. And so yes, there are new investments because Egypt's stock internationally has gone up. Like Farouz said, Egypt, you are back on the map, basically. And so yes, Egypt, because of its institutions, of its administration and presidency, because of its people and its scientists that are capable of innovating and to actually do unprecedented things. And so yeah, we need intensified cooperation on so many levels, like economy and advancements. We need to advance the infrastructure, and even in the medical institutions, education and AI. We need advancements in all of these fields so that the Egypt's infrastructure can get better and better.
Dr. Rehan, one final question now. For the public at home and visitors abroad, what official channels should they follow for accurate information on the GEMS operations, the events and policies, so that nobody gets mixed up with anything?
Of course, we have our official channels like the Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities, because the museum's administration is tied directly to the Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities.
From Cairo, that was Dr. Abdulrahim Rehan, the member of the History and Antiquities Committee at the Supreme Council of Culture and head of the campaign to defend Egyptian civilization. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us here on Q News. Now we go back to Hela in the studio. Hela.
Thank you so much, Hani. Moving on, here in Giza, beside the pyramids, Egypt opens the Grand Egyptian Museum, the world's largest single civilization museum, unveiling the restored Ramses II Colossus and the first full display of Tutankhamun's 5,000 objects, a new flagship for culture and tourism.
Here in Giza, within sight of the pyramids, Egypt inaugurates the Grand Egyptian Museum, hailed as the world's largest museum devoted to a single civilization and the country's most ambitious cultural project in decades. The government has marked the occasion with an official paid holiday, underscoring the scale of today's event and the expectation that the new complex will become a national showcase for culture and tourism. Designed by Hennigan Ping architects to align with the geometry of the Giza Plateau, the museum's architecture funnels visitors toward the pyramids through a series of grand, light-filled spaces. At the entrance stands a red granite colossus of Ramses II, around 11 meters tall, moved and restored for permanent display in the vast atrium. From there, a monumental grand staircase rises like a procession, lined with dozens of royal and divine statues that frame a chronological journey through 7,000 years of history. Inside, more than 100,000 artifacts are slated for exhibition, anchored by the headline draw, the first full unified display of the roughly 5,000 objects from Tutankhamun's tomb gathered in one place for the first time since 1922 discovery. Curators have organized 12 major galleries to blend colossal sculpture with delicate funerary art and everyday objects, using new interpretation and climate-controlled cases to protect fragile materials while opening up stories long confined to storage. The museum is more than showpiece galleries. Behind the scenes, a state-of-the-art conversation center, one of the largest of its kind in the region, houses specialized laboratories for organic materials, textiles, wood, metals, and stone. Over the past years, it has treated tens of thousands of objects in preparation for opening and is set up as a regional training hub for restoration science and collections care. Financing and delivery spanned years and multiple phases. Japan's International Cooperation Agency, GICA, backed construction and fit out with substantial soft funds, most notably a 34.8 billion yen tranche, alongside Egyptian state funding and a fundraising campaign. Those resources underwrote not only the main building and exhibition construction, but also landscape works and information systems, key elements for a modern visitor experience beside one of the world's oldest monuments. Today's opening is also time to reinvigorate cultural tourism. After a period of regional tension and stop-start timelines, authorities and the travel industry have pegged the museum's debut, and especially the Tutankhamun galleries, as a catalyst to push high-value heritage travel back to pre-pandemic momentum. Operators speak of itineraries that start at the GEM, at the GEM, and continue across the capital's museum network and the Nile Valley, extending stays and spreading visitor flows. Symbolically, the story comes full circle, a 21st century campus that pairs restoration labs and contemporary design with granite kings, gilded shrines, and everyday objects from the Nile. From the Ramses Colossus in the atrium to the new curated Tutankhamun suites, Egypt's Grand Egyptian Museum opens as a bridge between antiquity and the present, an investment in heritage stewardship and a fresh gateway to the civilization that shaped this landscape.
Ladies and gentlemen, from Giza to Gaza, let's delve into the latest developments.
And then, of course, we have the host tonight, and I just want to thank you very much. It was a reason we chose Egypt, because you were very helpful, and very, very helpful. Everybody wanted to have this, but we really thought it was appropriate, and you are a great leader. And he's a fantastic man and a fantastic general, by the way. But he's a great president, and I want to thank Egypt and all of your representatives for treating us all so well. Thank you very much.
Humanitarian aid trucks began entering Gaza via the Rafah border crossing as part of the 64th Zaid al-Izza from Egypt to Gaza convoy. The trucks carry fuel, medical supplies, and food baskets for Palestinians affected by the conflict. The convoys follow months of limited access after Israel closed crossings in March and allowed only partial deliveries under a mechanism criticized by the UN and relief agencies. U.S. President Donald Trump has described the Israel-Hamas ceasefire that he helped broker as not fragile and very solid. Despite accusations of violations by both sides, Trump warned that Hamas could be taken out immediately if they don't behave, and said that he could disarm the group quickly if necessary, emphasizing his control over potential U.S. action in the region.
Electric generating plants along with the plant itself. And that gives them all the electric they need without going to an old grid that's, 150 years old.
Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has slammed Israel's poor record in upholding the Gaza ceasefire, saying that Hamas appears more committed to the truce. Erdogan stated that Israel killed over 200 people since the Gaza ceasefire and continuing its occupation and attacks on the West Bank. He also warned against attempts to annex the West Bank, alter Jerusalem's status, or harm Al-Aqsa Mosque. Moving on to Lebanon, where an Israeli airstrike has targeted a vehicle near the Al-Sharqiyya Douair junction in southern Lebanon, killing one person and wounding seven. Several cars were set ablaze. Since last year's ceasefire, official Lebanese data showed that around 300 people were killed and over 650 injured in Israeli strikes. International Criminal Court (ICC) has expressed profound alarm over atrocities in Al-Fashir, Sudan, following the October 26th takeover by the Rapid Support Forces. Reports indicate mass killings, rapes, looting, and attacks on aid workers, with tens of thousands trapped after 18 months of siege. The ICC noted that such acts, if confirmed, could constitute war crimes and crimes against humanity under the Rome Statute. Over 65,000 residents have fled the city, raising fears of a repeat of the atrocities. Iran's Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei has said that Tehran will not negotiate with the United States unless it abandons support for Israel, withdraws military bases from the region, and stops interfering in Middle Eastern affairs. Khamenei described the U.S. as arrogant and said that only submission is accepted. He added that a strong Iran would gain immunity by making confrontation costly for its enemies. And that brings us to the end of our news bulletin. But before we wrap it up, here is a recap of the top stories making headlines this hour. Egypt assures the Grand Egyptian Museum remains state-owned. The ICC expresses profound alarm over atrocities in Al-Fashir, Sudan. And Iran's supreme leader says that talks with the U.S. require ending support for Israel and withdrawing from the region. That brings us to the end of our news bulletin. But for more stories and live updates, you can follow Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at QNewsEG. And from all of us here, thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for more updates here. Of course, analysis coming your way here on Q News.